Welcome back to Against the Cage, your home for all things going on in the world of MMA, including exclusive interviews with all of your favorite fighters and figures in the sport. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm joined here by my co-hosts Scott Fontana and Erich Richter. And guys, there's a lot to go over since the last time that we spoke. Of course, UFC 327 in Miami. Lots to dig into there, but let's start off with the main event. One of the craziest moments I've seen in a title fight, and really I think that a lot of people have seen in a title fight. Jiří Procházka looks all but certain to win when Carlos Ulberg, his knee essentially gives out, and he pulls it out of the fire, knocks out Jiří Procházka in a little bit of an awkward timeline leading up to that. It seems as if Jiří was a little bit hesitant. He points to the ground, and out of nowhere, a left hook comes, hits Jiří Procházka, and he goes down. Carlos Ulberg finishes him off, and he is our new UFC light heavyweight champion. Eric, I want to throw it over to you because these two guys have kind of done a little bit of talking afterwards. Jiří Procházka said, in those moments leading up, he was showing him mercy, whereas Carlos Ulberg, obviously he got that win himself. I want to ask you, does he deserve full credit for that title win, or is this really a result of Jiří showing him mercy?
This one's tough. So just for all the listeners out there that don't follow me on X, like I was at the fight, I was cage side for it. And, you could see Jiří Procházka's face really well as he was staring like towards my direction. When he points down to like the ring, he's almost like, it looked like, in my opinion, at the time, especially, it looked like kind of a celebration. I'll be honest. It looked like he was celebrating a little bit. Also like, oh no, like you broke your, like hurt your leg, but also like, I'm excited that I'm about to win the fight or whatever. I looked over to his management team and they were hyped. They were on their feet. They were jumping up and down. They're like, he's gonna win. He's gonna win. He's gonna win. And then he loses tragically in a spot where you can't lose that fight. My opinion, Jiří Procházka totally dropped the bag on this. This is his fault. This was his fight, his night. He's got to win it. Does Ulberg deserve it? Absolutely. He probably tore multiple ligaments, or at least, we're thinking he might have torn his ACL, and then he lands a flash knockout on Jiří Procházka, which was nuts. Carlos Ulberg deserves full credit for that. It's unbelievable. Can't imagine knocking out or winning a heavyweight or a light heavyweight title fight with a torn ACL by knockout in the first round. Crazy. But oh my God, Jiří Procházka he's got to be sick. I know his management team is sick right now. Jiří Procházka just can't help himself. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. He's, a little self-destructive in these spots where it's, he just wants to stand and bang and puts himself in positions to lose fights. This is, in my opinion, did Jiří show mercy? I don't think he showed mercy. I just think he dropped the bag. I just think he made a really, really big tactical error. And Scott, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this because, man, Jiří really, really, he's got to be sick all week. And honestly, he'll probably be sick for the next few months.
You know what? Before I get into everything, I do want to give you a nice kudos here because you, Eric, pointed out very clearly that the counter striking is going to be a key difference maker for Carlos Ulberg last week. And honestly, once you pointed that out, I was going from a place of, I really feel like Yuri's going to get this one. I think he's durable enough. I think he can go through it. And then you pointed that out, and I was like, you know what, man? He's got those defensive holes, and you got a counter striker like Ulberg who does hit really hard. Like you got to at least give some respect to it. So I was much, but when they started making the walk, by the time I would say they started making the walk, I was like, okay, you know what? This is interesting. I want to see how this goes. But I still thought Jiří was going to get it. Didn't work out that way, and I think it really comes down to the reason why Jiří Procházka lost is because he just didn't have enough fight IQ. The fight IQ is just so important in mixed martial arts, and it's not a tangible, it's pretty intangible, but it's highly important. It's probably just as important as like gas tank when you're talking about like very key elements of fights that fighters can use to win. You need to be able to make the right choices in these moments, take advantage of the wrong choices by your opponents. And look, Carlos Ulberg did exactly that. Jiří Procházka did not. So it doesn't matter if he showed mercy or whatever Yuri wants to call it. He made a bad choice in the cage, and that's why he lost. So it doesn't matter if he allowed that to happen. We've seen fighters do that all the time. I mean, you go to Chael Sonnen when he basically was going to beat, or if you ask him, when he defeated Anderson Silva when he won that fight. That was a situation where, look, Silva had been looking for that triangle a few times because Chael Sonnen had been shown to be weak to triangles and arm bars from fighters on the bottom. It's a tactic, and it's something you're taking advantage of somebody deficient in one way, and that's what Ulberg was doing. Yuri should have pushed the gas or pushed the pace. He should have finished it. When he pointed to the mat, he should have stayed and actually tried to do it. But instead, he backed off anyway. Right after that point, it was like you're doing the point at the mat thing, then you're not sticking around for it. I hate when fighters do that now. It's so stupid. Either do it or don't. Right. So yeah, I think it really just comes down to this is not Yuri making smart choices in the cage. He cost himself for it, and he's got no one to blame for himself. And honestly, this sour grapes thing that he's doing in public, it's a very bad look. I think it's the type of thing that could actually affect the way people kind of look at Yuri, because I don't know that they looked at him with many negative kind of feelings before. And now we're starting to see reasons where it's like, well, what the heck, guy? Just take your L, learn from it, get better. You win or learn. You got to learn from this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scott, the bringing up the Chael Anderson Silva thing is perfect, man. It's very similar. It's like you literally wrestled defeat from the jaws of victory in both cases. You know, Jake, I don't know what you think, but he was like one oblique kick away. Like, you couldn't just throw a kick. Like, why are you standing there trading with your hands down? Like, what are you doing?
So I will say this. I'm not defending the decision-making of Jiří Procházka here. He should have gone ahead and finished him like he very well could have, it seemed like. I will say, though, my read on the moments leading up to it, the pointing down, to me, it seemed like nobody was more disappointed in Carlos's leg being compromised than Jiří. Like, I feel like the whole pointing down thing and his weird hesitancy was because he was like, I don't want to win this way. That's at least how I read it. That being said, you're in a title fight and you're about to you could have gotten the title back that you've been wanting to get back for so long. He should have absolutely just gone ahead and done what he needed to do. I mean, the guy's essentially fighting on one leg, but the fact that Carlos Ulberg was able to do that is honestly just as big of a story as like the whole disappointment of Yuri's decision making. It's being in the first round compared to like the fifth round of that Leon Edwards head kick, I think is the main differentiator on like the wow factor of that. So I'm not sure if this one quite matches up to that, but the fact that Carlos was doing that on a compromised leg when honestly any other fighter in that position would have probably just been in survival mode. And to a certain extent, Carlos was, but he was throwing head kicks on a compromised leg, supporting that head kick, and then he goes ahead and throws that left hook, really trying to put Yuri out. Really unbelievable. So much respect for what he was able to do there. I thought it was crazy.
Yeah, I don't see as many comps for like with Leon Edwards' situation against Kamaru Usman, because Leon was not really in that fight up until the point he actually won the fight. Whereas in this one, Ulberg was very much in it, even compromised, because he's still connecting. Mm-hmm. He was like, honestly, you could take away the leg, which is obviously a key part of this, but like, there's a conceivable way you're watching this and it's like, hey, Ulberg has a little bit of a case for this round, just a little. Like, it's I don't know that I would have gone there because I think the leg still trumps it, but we're talking about not a blowout round. We're just talking about, man, this guy's knee is out and he's trying to fight, but he's still actually sort of in this fight.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm drawing that similarity is just because in that moment, like leading up to that, everyone was thinking Yuri was going to win, and everyone was going to. It was a comeback, right? A knockout comeback, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, the total turn of events. We 180 U-turn on this stuff, right?
Yeah, Eric, what were you
doing? A full 360, as some people like to say.
Yeah.
Well, that the kick was tough, man, because he throws that kick, and I think that's when he knew he was like, okay, this is as bad as I think it is. When he threw that kick, it was crazy because when you're sitting in the octagon, and you guys know this, it's like you could see everybody. It's very open. So like I'm looking to see different reactions as the fight concludes. I look at John Jones, and John Jones like, wow, that was crazy. Everyone's standing up. And man, Yuri Prochazka's management team just down, holding their head like they are out, down for the count. Honestly, I cannot imagine what it's like to be with Yuri Prochazka's team right now. Like he blew this so bad. I even wrote about it for NewYorkPostSports.com. Feel free to take a look at it. But he wrestled defeat from the jaws of victory. This is celebrating too early, is the way that I put it. And yeah, not great.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I mean, he's going to be a new father any day now. I'm not sure if actually his daughter's been.
If he hasn't already.
Yeah. So
Yeah, he
hopefully
might
that
be.
will ease the blow. But Scott, I do want to ask you because you did mention how fans might look at Yuri Prochazka the way that he's been speaking. He really wants that rematch. Carlos Ulberg has not been a huge supporter of that idea. I won fair and squared. Scott, I want to ask you, do you want a rematch for Yuri and Ulberg, seeing as they kind of want opposite things right now?
I mean, it would be fun as hell, but I don't need it right away. By Yuri's own logic, when I was talking with him in the lead up to this fight, and he didn't really see the need for Magomed Ankalaev to get this first shot at the vacant title coming off of a loss, even though a lot of people, maybe some people even in this call, view him as the number one after we have Alex Pereira leaving the division, right? He just got stopped, and Yuri said, "Hey, you know what? You're gonna have to win another fight." So again, by that logic, Yuri should think he needs to win another fight just to get another shot at this, and I'm okay with that. I'd be more interested, honestly, in Magomed Ankalaev getting that chance against Carlos Ulberg, in this next phase of it's sort of like a round robin. Like we're trying to figure out who really is the best now that we don't have Alex Pereira anymore to kick these guys around in this weight class. So I think that's where we go. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. There's obviously we don't know exactly what's going to happen next with Magomed Ankalaev. We also don't know if there's anything else that's going to happen with Carlos Ulberg, how long he's going to be out and that kind of thing. So I would rather just settle the debate now and kind of figure out who really is the true number one. So let's do Ulberg and Ankalaev as soon as we're able.
Eric, what do you think?
I'm gonna pass on the rematch on this one. My opinion here is just like that was Yuri's fight. He had his opportunity to win it. I don't know that. I think that Olberg, if he was fully healthy, that obviously like he did it with a torn ACL, he'd probably do it again, right? That was just Yuri had his shot. That way he had all the win conditions possible to be given. He was given a layup here with a blown out knee, and he lost it. So like he's gonna have to really do some things to like get back up there. I mean, he's gonna have to beat. I mean, he like kind of lost the first two rounds to Khalil Roundtree. I understand he won that fight by knockout in the third round, but like, I don't know, man. He's gonna have to do some things to get back up there. There's no way he should get a straightaway rematch. I mean, he's not out of the picture given Olberg sounds like he's injured for an extended period, but I definitely want to see him get like a win or two under his belt before, he should not get an immediate title shot by any stretch of the imagination. Ankalaev makes sense if Olberg is healthy enough. But we also don't know. Like we might be looking at interim belt here. There's going to be new contenders at light heavyweight as well. Hamzat Chimaev and Reiner de Ritter, who we expect to come up here at some point. Like this division is interesting right now for sure. The light heavyweight division is not nothing right now.
Well, Eric, I want to ask you, that brings me into my next question. If Carlos Ulberg is going to be out, and obviously knees can be tricky. Last I heard, I think he was still waiting on the results of whether or not it was an ACL. I'm not sure if you guys have heard any results come out, but regardless.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, regardless, knees can be tricky, right? So if he is going to be out for a long period of time, Eric, if you had to put a interim title fight together, what would you do?
Depending on where the UFC, like where they need a main eventer, but like let's say Hamzat Chimaev beats Sean Strickland and he's like, I can't make middleweight anymore and he wants to go to light heavy. How about Ankalaev versus Chimaev for the interim belt? I mean, that would be fun. Like, who would say no to that? That's a fun fight. And it's also good for Ankalaev too. It's like kind of stylistically, I don't hate it for him. Like, he can grapple and he can strike and he's not going to get out volumed by Hamzat on the feet. So like stylistically, I like that matchup for him. And not for nothing, but the way that this division is shaping out here, if Ulberg is out, and like here's the thing about ACLs. And just like ligament injuries in general, the longer that you put off surgery, the more swelling happens, and then the longer the absence is. So like I don't know if they're probably waiting on MRI results because swelling is taking place in the knee at this point. So we could be looking at not knowing for a month. That's what happened with like Malik Neighbors, for instance, in the NFL. Malik Neighbors, they had to wait a month and a half just to do the surgery because they needed swelling to go down just to see how many ligaments were torn. Was it the ACL, the LCL, the PCL, MCL, etc. So this could be. We are looking at a potentially really lengthy absence for Carlos Ulberg if it is indeed what we think it might be. And for the light heavyweight division, they're going to need to do an interim belt. That's for sure. If Ulberg is as injured as we think he is. So, from that point, how about Paulo Costa? Paulo Costa looked amazing against Asmat Murzakanov. Paulo Costa up to number 7, and we had him in our rankings as well for the worldwide light heavyweight rankings. He looked great. I wouldn't be maybe one more win from Paulo Costa, then he fights for an interim belt in the summer. Like, who says no to that either,
Scott, what say you?
There's something to the Costa thing. Is obviously he just got here, but he is a lot more of a name, I guess, in this division because outside of the top, like we were saying, 2 or 3, there's not a lot of like pure name recognition in this weight class. So somebody like him getting a win off of Murzakanov, who was hot, and the fact that he was somebody you could kind of put in these, let's say, fight night main events. Like he was recognizable enough. They're like, yeah, we could put him in a bunch of these, and he fought for the title at middleweight. That does make some sense. I'll give you that one, Eric. But I'm gonna give you a different scenario just to kind of give an alternative, right? I want to say because Ankalaev once again is kind of teased, he may fight in July in Abu Dhabi. Not clear if that's official, not clear of an opponent. We don't know exactly what happened, but I would turn that into an interim title fight on a non-numbered event. It's fine with me. And I think they would be okay putting on one of those in Abu Dhabi. I think they like to do that in the Middle East there with a lot of the money comes out of that region, right? I would be interested to see if they would go that route. And the opponent I'm going to put forth would actually be, and this is probably a little out of left field here, the winner of Bogdan Gushkov against Jan Blachowicz, which is going to be the rematch that's happening in Newark next month. I think you can go with Guskov here. If he wins, it would be 5-0-1 in his last 6. He'd avenge the only draw he had in that period. That's one way. And if it goes the other way, if Blachowicz actually gets a win, not only does he erase that 0-2-2 mark that he's kind of riding right now, with weirdly enough a couple draws in there, he actually sets up the rematch against Ankalaev. The only thing is maybe Dana White is extremely hesitant to put those two together again just because of what happened a few years ago. I would hope that shouldn't be something that keeps it away. And frankly, like if you've got Jan Blachowicz around at this point, give him one more shot. If he's not going to win it, maybe that's the end for him, and we just kind of move on, right? They could do Ankalaev and Yuri, sure, but like I don't know if that's an ideal way to do it because you got 2 guys coming off a loss. Do we really want the champion to just be emerging off of a loss from that? I don't love it.
We have seen
I don't like
things.
I definitely don't like Ankalaev versus Procházka. I don't like Blachowicz either, though. It feels like
no, I get that. I understand. It's the lesser of the potential outcomes, I think, especially from the UFC. But look, hey, not for nothing. He is the only other guy in the last 5 years, other than Procházka, to have actually defended the 205-pound title successfully.
It was against Adesanya, though, right? It wasn't really even in the division.
It was, but also, hey, you're talking about bringing up the middleweight champion to challenge for that. Like, this is a middleweight champion coming up. That's your suggestion.
That's fair. It is my suggestion. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at like Blachowicz getting the title shot at light heavyweight is like when Korean Zombie fought for the featherweight title. It's like this doesn't even make sense. I don't know. There just seems like there's
But this is a good chance to do that. Nothing really makes perfect sense right now.
right, right. Yeah, the light heavyweight division got totally screwed over by this injury. Honestly, like the UFC doesn't care about results, and I had said that. They care about this one. They care
Fair.
that this ended the way it did. They definitely are like, oh my God, come on.
Yeah. Well, Scott, you were talking beforehand about Magomed Ankalaev and our rankings, which, by the way, Scott, you did another column for our monthly rankings update, so please make sure to go check that out. But I want to hear more from you, Scott, about the column and also why you decided to put Ulberg above Magomed Ankalaev, unlike Eric and I.
You mean other than the fact that he's actually the champion, which is
Yes.
honestly, it is kind of beside the point, but it is, that's a very easy argument for me to
Sure.
make. That's not
It's a
actually where I'm going to
cop-out,
go. It is a cop out. I'm not going to take it. I've got other ways to
Okay.
defend this, I think. And look, I once again, I would also echo what Jake said. Check out the column. You can read the latest edition of all of our divisional New York Post Sports World MMA rankings in this column. But if you're not really a big reader, which you should be, reading is fundamental, you should definitely understand a couple of the key things that I was making a point for, kind of a TLDR thing, right? Really, the only argument that I think holds a whole lot of water if you want to put on Goliath number one, and maybe you guys have an alternative way to go about this, but I think it really just comes down to the fact that, hey, this guy split a couple of fights against Alex Pereira. Other than that, Ankalaev's body of work in the last several years is kind of lacking. He's got a victory over the shadow of Alexander Rakic, who is just a shell of himself now that his knee got destroyed, right? Against Jan Blachowicz, of course. And then also a win over, gatekeeper Johnny Walker. That is it. That's his whole last 2+ years. We're since the start of 2024. I'm not that impressed. And he's only got one finish. One of them was that one being against Johnny Walker more than 2 years ago. Let's go over to Ulberg here. We're talking about the strength of schedule is just significantly superior. He's 5-0 in that time, not 3-1. He's got 3 knockouts all in the first round. These are all the guys except for Blachowicz. That is one of them. One of those victories. He's not in our rankings because he's ineligible because of that aforementioned 0-2-2 run. The other 4 guys he's beaten would be in my top 12. If we went all the way down to 12 in our rankings, that's a healthy chunk of the really best guys at 205 pounds. And it's a lot better than what I'm seeing from Ankalaev at this point. So I feel really good about my decision to go this way. I think just because he defeated the champion decisively, I think here this is a really good argument for him. Getting that win over Jiří Procházka, that is a really fantastic win, and I feel good about it. What's your counter argument? Give me something.
So first off, Eric, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead, Jake.
First off,
Let's hear you, Jake.
I definitely can accept your argument. I see it 100% when you lay it out that way. There's a scale, and depending on what you weigh more, it can definitely. For me, it really was just as simple as I had Magomed Ankalaev above Jiří, and when Carlos slid right above Jiří, that made sense to me. And also, like you mentioned before, the fact that Magomed Ankalaev has a win over Alex Pereira, who has beaten Jiří Procházka. Magomed and Jiří haven't faced yet, so it's kind of hard to say how much that matters. But for me, that was really the biggest factor, is that Magomed Ankalaev has a win over the guy that we have at number 1 in our rankings, and for me, that was enough. But Eric,
What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I'll go betting odds. Magomed Ankalaev opened as a -230 favorite as the challenger against Carlos Ulberg in a fight. They already put out odds for it. That's like not even close. That's like that's such a wide gap. Just like for reference, like that's as big of an underdog as Paulo Costa was to Azamat Murzakanov. Like that. And again, Costa won that fight, but still, like that, he was a big underdog in that fight. There's just no way. Carlos Ulberg is also gonna be out forever, so it's never really. These are what the rankings are gonna be for like probably like a year. So I'll dig my feet in the sand on this one. Ankalaev should be higher than Ulberg. He's got the win over Pereira, and if they fought, Ankalaev's gonna be a massive favorite over Ulberg, at least opening.
Judging you very harshly on using betting odds to decide your rankings. Just know that.
Dude, I said it from the beginning. I told you that this is a part of my criteria, and I am sticking to it. I'm a man of my word in the Joker voice. You know.
It is a villainous move. I'll give you that.
In tiebreakers, I can actually kind of accept it. In very close, situations, I can understand it.
I'll tell you what, too. It was the reason that I had Aspinall over John Jones. That was the tiebreaker. Aspinall was favored in a fight with John Jones. I think that's reasonable.
Well, Eric, you're getting some hot
Very
takes
judgy
right now, but let's go ahead and move forward with some more. Let's go to haymakers and round out UFC 327. Eric, what is your haymaker coming out of this one?
I don't know. All right, so we're going to talk about the man of the hour who's too sweet to be sour, but it's not Chael Sonnen. It is Josh Hockett. 177 significant strikes and took a ton back from Curtis Blades. The fight of the year, one of the best fights we've ever seen. Being there live was insane. Look, I don't know how long this Josh Hockett experience is going to last when he's fighting like that, but he does not need to be putting on these bizarre, cringe, workouts and whatever at the weigh-ins. Josh Hockett has potential to be the biggest star in heavyweight over in the last maybe 5 years. Josh Hockett he's got the goods. He's got a little bit of swagger too, and honestly, undersized for a heavyweight. I think the sky is the limit for this guy. They put him on the White House card. They should. That makes sense. They need more American stars that can actually win their fights. Josh Hockett, man, I came away so impressed. I wish he was able to speak to the media afterwards. They had to put him in an ambulance. I was just so impressed by everything that he did in that fight, and he really silenced all the doubters, man. I don't know how long this is going to last at heavyweight. I think he could cut down to light heavyweight if he really wanted to, and I would like to see that, honestly. I think that he maybe could, if you squint, you could see a title contender in here, and he's definitely got the personality and the juice now. He's a big star for the UFC. This is exactly what they needed. Good on Josh Hockett for going out on a limb and really putting himself out there.
I would say what you want about his personality outside the cage, which some people probably not their cup of tea. Inside the cage, it's hard to argue that the guy isn't fireworks. So I'm impressed.
He gave those fans something that no one will forget.
Scott, what do you got?
Even Dana White thinks that the whole edgelord weirdness thing that he's doing is stupid. But you know what? I'll acknowledge that. Yes, the guy can scrap, and I'm cool with that part of it. I hope he drops the other thing and just goes with the swagger and leans more into that, because this whole shaking and the weirdness and the pro wrestler thing that he thinks he's doing some sort of Macho Man Randy Savage type of movements and stuff. I don't know what it is. It's really terrible. It's like a modern but terrible version of that. I don't know what he's doing. Stop it. Just fight and we'll like it. I think it'll be okay. I'll give you for my haymaker actually Paulo Costa. You mentioned him earlier, Eric. I really think that this is just another case where moving up in weight, it's addition by subtraction. You're not doing the weight cutting thing anymore. You're fighting a little bit more freely. You're able to take advantage of maybe speed advantages that you can have over these guys because you probably aren't cutting as much. You're a little less lethargic, and I think that's what we saw against Paulo Costa. I do think there's something about Azamat Murzakanov here that probably was just a good matchup for someone like Costa, who is going to be faster, and he's not necessarily going to be faster than everybody, but I think that speed will carry pretty far in this weight class. He's only 34, and he doesn't have a ton of mileage on him either, so I think I'm pretty optimistic about his ability to climb up a ladder. We already talked about it a little bit. You're already putting him in an interim title fight. I don't hate it. I really don't, which is crazy because at the beginning of the year, or maybe what was it, 6 months ago? I can't remember the last time. When did he beat Roman Kopylov? Whenever before that fight, I thought he was dead in the water. I really did. I was like, this guy's just not winning fights. Now he's actually put together at least a little bit of a run, and he's in a weight class that is very easy to take advantage of. So if they don't do some sort of interim fight or maybe if they decide to do this way. I actually kind of like the idea of him against Yuri Procházka. I think that would be a fun fight. I think it makes a lot of sense as a very quick jump up the ladder. If he can win that fight over Yuri, then definitely you got to put him in a title fight. I think that's highly conceivable. So I'd be curious to see if they put something like that together. I like that one though. Do you guys?
Oh yeah.
Don't hate
So
it.
take my pay-per-view money that you no longer want. But no, Paulo Costa
Please keep it.
versus Jiří Procházka is such a good interim fight. And yeah, man, we were writing him off before that Roman Kopylov fight, and he comes out here with a huge victory. I mean, more power to him. He's super famous, by the way. I don't know if you saw the Google trends. He was the most Googled fighter in the UFC that night. Paulo Costa
Really? Wow.
was the most Googled fighter in the UFC that night. Like the top search terms, Jedi Goodman Twitter account posted that. It was UFC 327, and Paulo Costa was the three most Googled trends. Paulo Costa's got juice, man.
The secret juice. Well, I will say a guy that you guys have been talking about and following for a little bit longer than I have, Mr. Aaron Pico. He's going to be the guy that I want to, I guess,
Good one.
highlight coming off of Saturday night. And I do kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on this too, but at least from what you guys have, explained to me, he has had a little bit of a turbulent career, a whole lot of potential though. One of the biggest prospects continuously throughout his career, and he comes away with a very decisive victory over a fellow Bellator veteran, Patricio Pitbull. By the way, we were talking about this in pre-production. The fact that Aaron Pico is like, maybe I do have a glass jaw, referencing that knockout from Lerone Murphy, and then going ahead and just smacking Pitbull in the mouth numerous times and just not getting put away. Patricio
Apparently
Pitbull,
taking away some of his vision in the process.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what Pitbull was saying. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness.
Oh wow, I didn't.
Yeah, he was talking about like, I
That's
lost my
so
vision
scary.
during the fight.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is a guy who does not have a
imagine
glass
that.
jaw. That is for sure. And now Aaron Pico finds himself in the top 10 of the New York Post worldwide MMA rankings. I mean, he's in our top 10. So I feel like the guy is finally maybe living up to his potential. Like I said, he's had a little bit of a turbulent career, so who knows what happens next. But Scott, I want to ask you, do you think that this is the biggest win of his career, and is he finally reaching his potential, you think?
It's easily the biggest win of his career. It's the one that kind of we were waiting to see this fight for years in Bellator. He never quite got there. I think what happened was they rushed him early, and then I thought they slowed him down too much. At a certain point, they really should have just pushed that fight. Like this fight should have happened in Bellator. It should have happened with all the focus on one Bellator event and in the main event. I know you guys said, "Hey, look, he's fighting on CBS on the simulcast," so there's that. But like, I still think this is the type of fight that we really ought to have had some really serious talk of, and it was really just another fight on this card. 5 rounds would have been fun. There's no 5 rounds here. It was just 3. I would have wanted to see if we could have gotten some resolution in those later rounds one way or another. I know it was a brutal fight, especially from Pitbull's perspective, but hey, you never know because of that jaw, right? Maybe Pitbull finds a way to connect with it late. I would have been interested to see that. So no, I was a little disappointed that happened, but look, he's here. I think he really is now arrived. And I'm interested to see what he can do. I mean, he lost to Lerone Murphy, obviously in devastating fashion, but he was very, very much winning that fight up until that point. So that says he belongs in the top 10 to me. I'm cool with it, and I really want to know what he can do next. Maybe he challenges somebody who's got a little bit more wrestling slant to them, and or at least more grappling acumen. So that gives a different type of challenge. Let's see if he can pass that one as well. Maybe it gets him closer to the top 5 or something.
Absolutely. Well, you at home, let us know.
Take.
Yeah.
I got a hot take. Aaron Pico to be the featherweight champion by the end of the year.
This year?
Yeah, this year. Look for the bets online. You could bet that on DraftKings or BetMGM. He's 1 win away. He's 1 win away from title shot.
Save your money. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't listen to Eric. I'm going against
he's
it.
1 win away.
Let us know
promise.
in the comments how insane that take is, and everything else coming off of UFC 327. But guys, UFC is not the only thing to talk about this week, because there is, as Jake Paul would say, a new sheriff in town. MVP did a whole lot of press this week, including Ronda Rousey came over to our studio, did an excellent interview with Mr. Scott Fontana. So go ahead and check that out. But yeah, there were talking about the Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano fight that's set to take place next month. Scott, let's take a quick look at one of the clips from that interview.
Other than having your hand raised, what is success for this event for you?
Success for this event for me would be for this to be the most viewed MMA fight of all time, and for Netflix to be, convinced by the success of this event to invest heavily into the future of this sport and MVP. And I would love to, be a partner with MVP in making that future of the sport in Netflix a reality.
Alrighty, so there you go. You heard Ronda Rousey talking about potentially sticking around in MMA as a bit of a different figure. Scott, what were some of your biggest takeaways from that interview?
Well, the one I enjoyed the most was when she started talking about the problems with like modern MMA style making the fights kind of a little less engaging than they used to be. Her fight against Gina Carano is very much going to be, heavy judo against very strict, almost strictly Muay Thai. It's a throwback to a different era, and I do think the fights were more interesting when there were kind of clear holes one way or the other, but also clear strengths on each side. It just made it a lot better than, okay, everyone's kind of going to be able to defend the same stuff and they're going to run the same combinations, and it really just comes down to winning on the margins, which can be interesting but also generally less fun. And obviously that's bothering her too. So I agreed with Ronda on that one, and that kind of stuck with me. I liked that.
All right. And again, make sure to check that one out for you guys at home. And Eric, you spoke to Jake Paul, the CEO and founder of MVP. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
That's what we're proving and working with Netflix with this event and throwing an amazing card that there is another sheriff in town.
Yeah. So this is the beginning of many MMA cards as far as you're concerned?
Yes, hopefully. And I believe when May 16th is a success, there'll be much more to come.
So, Eric, a similar vein as what Ronda was talking about, but what was your takeaway from your conversation with Jake?
It just seems like if this Netflix event is as successful as it seems like it's going to be, they're going to be competing with the UFC and trying to take market share away in MMA. And Jake Paul told me that he intends to be a promoter for his entire life, long after his boxing career has ended. He still intends to box, at least for now, but he's ready to compete with Dana White and Eddie Hearn as a promoter. And I think that that's great for MMA, and it's great for the sport and great for the fans. Just as an aside, he also, Joe Rogan had said that Nate Diaz got over $10 million to fight in this MVP card against Mike Perry, as much as 15 at one point. Jake Paul seemed to throw some cold water on that and said, that is an inflated number. So he didn't really put it out there. It's going to be public knowledge later next month anyway, because it's California and they release salaries. But just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was an interesting little bit as well.
All right.
And I also want to throw just to tack on to Eric too. I mean, it certainly seems like from a lot of things we're hearing out of Ronda, including some things that she alluded to, I believe even in that clip, right? That maybe there's some promotional future for her. Maybe she's going to be a part of this whole kind of MVP mouthpiece type of thing alongside of a Jake Paul. And obviously she knows how to promote. She gave a very lengthy answer about how much time, when I was speaking with her, how much time she kind of considers answering questions and kind of saying the right things. And she clearly didn't want to do the Kayla Harrison rant when I asked her about it in our interview. She's like, hey, stay tuned. So she knew what she was about to do. And maybe it was canned, but also it came off really well. So, and that speaks to the pro wrestling kind of chops that she had. I didn't watch her in WWE, so I don't really know as much about what she was like in that realm, but obviously she knows how to cut a promo, and I think that's the type of thing you definitely want to have from a promotional standpoint. They're loud, they draw attention. That is the one key thing that helps MVP more than I think any other promotion that's come along in, let's say, the post-Strikeforce era, where we've been kind of looking for someone to actually challenge in any sort of way. Not that Strikeforce truly did either, the UFC. So we'll see what happens. I'm always skeptical of promotions that come along and they're like, oh, we can take away market share. It's like, all right, we'll see. But they have some of the pieces that I think you need. So I'm curious how that goes.
Absolutely. And also at the press conference, she was talking about, minimum salaries for MVP and fighter pay and what they're trying to do with it. And it felt very natural to me. I feel like she could absolutely slot into that role.
$40,000 floor. That's what she's talking about for every fighter on this card. That's
Yeah,
one thing that kind of got lost in the shuffle. But yeah, it was that was interesting to hear.
for
Absolutely.
sure.
Well, definitely go ahead and check both of those interviews out. Guys, let's look forward to what's going on this weekend up in Canada, UFC Winnipeg. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern for the main card, 5 p.m. for the prelims, all on Paramount Plus. We got Gilbert Burns taking on proper Mike Malott. And Scott, I want to ask you, it kind of seems like Mr. Mike Malott is being pushed to be the face of Canadian MMA currently, at least to the active fighters. Do you think that Mike Malott is really the right guy to be Mr. Canada for the UFC? What do you think?
I'm not convinced. Look, he's probably going to do good enough to beat Gilbert Burns. I think what we have right now is a Gilbert Burns who, at this point, he's going to be 40. This summer, he's in free fall. He's lost 4 fights in a row. I mean, they're obviously against very talented fighters. And he couldn't be a nicer guy. I mean, I've enjoyed interacting with him. He's a professional. He seems like a gentleman. He seems like a good dude. Everybody loves him. I love him. I love him cage side because he's so emotional. He gets so
Yes.
invested into his teammates. And years back when they were on Long Island and his brother Herbert tore up his, I don't want to say he tore up his knee,
Yeah,
and Gilbert was
I remember that.
carrying him out, like almost like heroically carrying his brother. I got a nice photo of that
Oh,
that kind
yeah,
of
I remember that.
circulated pretty well on
I
social
remember
media.
that.
That was my photo. That's right. And even some of the people from the gym were like, "Hey, can I use that photo and put it up in our gym?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Just put my name on it or something like that." I don't know if they ever
Yeah.
did, but at any rate, to get back to Michael Lott here, I just welterweight's so deep. I just suspect that he's gonna hit some sort of wall in like maybe his next matchup after this one. I'm writing him off as a victor. We can't do that, but I feel pretty good about it. If you want me to give an actual pick, who I think Mr. Canada is right now, I mean, obviously it's always going to be forever in time, George Rush St. Pierre. But for the current moment, I'm gonna go with Eamon Zahabi. I mean, he's won 7 in a row. He's got obviously a big fight at the White House against Sean O'Malley. He goes in there and he beats an American at the White House. I mean, everybody, our neighbors in the North are gonna really love that because they've not been very happy with their neighbors from the South in the last few years for some, let's say, non-fight reasons. I don't know. I don't really see him a lot kind of getting past a certain point, and I do think the wall is going to prevent him from really being anything special.
Fair enough. Eric, where's your head at?
Yeah, I mean, you've said all the key points about Mike Malott. The welterweight's just so loaded. When you look at like what Mr. Canada was, back in the day, I mean, obviously you have George St. Pierre, coached by Faraz Zahabi, brother of Ayman Zahabi. So I really like that shout out, Scott. And then also, you had Rory McDonald as well, who is one of the premier fighters at the time, and had that legendary fight with Robbie Lawler that we watched as a homework assignment. I believe we did that as a homework assignment. But
I believe
regardless,
so.
will Mike Malott be able to, wrestle this away? He's going to have to put together several victories and probably contend for a title at a loaded division. I'll throw a different name at you other than Zahabi. I'll throw Jillian Robertson out there. Ontario, Canada. She's fighting out of Florida.
But that's
American
Ms.
Top Team.
Canada. We're talking about Mr.
I
Canada.
hear you. I hear you. This is gender neutral over here. Jillian Robertson's my girl, and I think that division's there for the taking. I'll say.
One thing that I will say, as far turning attention to Dorino, the 4 losses he has had, they've aged pretty well. Bilal Muhammad, Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, Michael Morales. I don't think that he's totally out for this, and I'm not sure that you were saying that he is either. But we have seen, situations where these veterans maybe get written off a little bit too quickly, and afterwards we're kind of like, okay, in hindsight, maybe we wrote them off a little bit too quickly. I feel like we might see that this weekend, but who knows?
It's possible,
Uh,
but listen, the key thing for me is that he is almost 40 and he does have some miles on him now.
Sure.
Think about that. Think about that absolute brawl he had with Hamzat Chimaev, right? Like, there's fights he's had that have definitely taken time off of his career, and he is almost 40. He's been doing this a while. I do see the potential for him to just truly fall off a cliff, and not just the 4 straight losses, but also it's just time. Sometimes these things happen. I don't wish it on him. I'm just concerned that it will.
Fair enough.
Not for nothing, I was at the Gilbert Burns Jack Della Maddalena fight, and that was a tough loss. Like he was, you talked about him being emotional. The emotions were like you wanted to cry for him, and he was winning on the scorecards when he lost in the third round.
Yeah.
It was actually
Yeah, he
pretty
gave
funny
that
as he
away.
walked out of the octagon and walked off to the cage. He hugged every fan, and the fans hugged him. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. He's a sweaty, bloody mess, and all the fans are grabbing him and hugging him, and he's sobbing. Like he wears his emotions on his sleeve, no doubt, and that made me really love MMA. I was like, that's so fun that the fans are just willing to embrace him like that.
If you don't like Gilbert Burns, you are just messed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
He's
you
a
might be
good
a bad
dude as
human.
far as I got. Look, are there things that we don't know about? Potentially, sure, because there are about literally anybody. But everything we've ever seen, every interaction I've ever had with him has been gentlemanly. It's been just wonderful. He is a true martial artist in the way that I love to see in this sport. So I wish him only the best, and I would love to see him come out with a victory. No offense to Mike Malott. I'm just very concerned that it's just not going to happen.
Shout out to Dorino. But Scott, we got some other fights to look at in this card. What is your fight to watch for UFC Winnipeg?
I didn't love anything like majorly, but I'll give you one that I think is interesting enough is Alan Nascimento against Mick Raposo. I love flyweights, so when in doubt, I go with a flyweight. I'm curious where Nascimento kind of fits in the flyweight division. I think there's at least some potential for him to rise up. There's not that many fights on this card where both men are coming off of victory as well. This is one of them, so I liked that part of it too. So yeah, I went with that.
Eric, how about yourself?
Yeah, I go Kyler Phillips versus Charles Jourdain. Kind of same thing as Scott. There's not a whole lot out here that's super interesting, but Kyler Phillips is usually pretty interesting to watch. And obviously Charles Jourdain always, packs a TKO threat, also packs a grappling like submission threat. So I think that this one should be an interesting style. Kyler Phillips not afraid to wrestle, and also not afraid to stand and bang. So I think this one should be action packed. It's just not super high level. Like Kyler Phillips coming off of 2 losses, one against Rob Font, who's like, we don't know where Rob Font's at this point in his career. So, yeah, that was my fault to watch.
All right, and for me, I've got Jasmine Jasdavicius, another fellow Canadian, on there versus Karine Silva. Both of these women are sitting kind of just outside my women's flyweight rankings, or at least Jasmine definitely is. Karine's not too far below, in my opinion. So I think that this could be an interesting one to, perhaps if Jasmine comes away with a very good victory, she could see herself in my rankings again. I guess same goes for Karine Silva as well. But, Scott, as far as the other fights on that card, what do we got for our event rating to round us out there?
So this is a 16. It's actually kind of better than I expected it to be. I didn't really love this card. It's basically a pure Canada showcase. Almost every single fight's got a Canadian fighter on it. And look, we're still looking for, like I said, Mr. Canada or Ms. or Mrs. Canada, right? I don't know that we have that dominant fighter, but I think the people of Winnipeg, the people of Canada, they're going to enjoy seeing a lot of their fighters that are at least decent, right? Canadian MMA has been down. It's, I think, a little bit more on an upswing. I don't know that we'll ever again reach the heights of George St. Pierre and Rory McDonald and all of that kind of thing. But either way, it's at least going in the right direction. We do have one top 15 matchup. It is the aforementioned Jasdavicius against Silva fight. That is the only top 15 matchup we have, top 15 versus top 15. We do have 17 out of 26 fighters are in the top 100, but 5 of the other 9 are beyond the top 200, including 3 that are 381st or lower. That is kind of dragging down the rating of this card as well. It's not the worst, but it's a regional UFC card, which means it's much stronger than most of your regional cards, but it's also still kind of just geared for the local audience, which is, again, there's something for that.
Fair enough. And then, Eric, to round out our Canadian UFC card, let's get your 3 bets in 3 minutes.
Thank you, Jake. Welcome to 3 Bets in 3 Minutes, everybody. Last week, 1 for 2 on the night, obviously with the 1 win being the main event. We had under 2.5 rounds, which hit easily. Missed Luque by decision. Had the right fighter, though. Big underdog, so process was good there. And obviously the parlay was a miss. We lose 1.5 units. We are still positive on the air, about 0.7 units up. We move on. 3 bets in 3 minutes. Let me put my 3 minutes on the clock here. And we still have a stopwatch on. Okay. And 3, 2, and we go 3 bets in 3 minutes. And we start with Thiago Moises versus Gouge Young. Thiago Moises used to be a guy that I really liked, actually. Thiago Moises actually, took Islam Makhachev's back once upon a time back in 2021. Kind of falling on hard times here. He got walked around the octagon against Ludovic Klein. Jared Gordon starched him in the first round, and you look at the box score of his win against Trey Ogden, you'd be like, oh, that's a good win for him. Well, not really. Trey Ogden actually got injured in that fight. He was getting beat down pretty good against Trey Ogden before the injury. Obviously, the loss to Benoit Saint-Denis. Mitch Ramirez's win doesn't really do anything for you either when he was 0-3 in the UFC with losses to Mike Davis. So that's kind of everything you need to know about Thiago Moises. I think he's on the wrong side of his career. Gouge Young actually did pretty good against Masa Hete last time. That was over in the summer, a win by unanimous decision. So I think that this is a spot where Young can kind of actually get a win here. He comes in as a slight favorite, but I think Moises is just on the wrong side of his career. I'm going to take the underdog here. We're going with Gouge Young here by decision, and the price is plus 205 is on BetRivers' best line that you can get right now. And then we go right to the co-main event: Charles Jourdain versus Kyler Phillips. Charles Jourdain, you guys might remember, was actually a lightweight back in the day. He moves all the way down to bantamweight. I know that this is my fight to watch, and usually I don't like picking that as a bet, but I have to. Jourdain's moving down in weight 20 pounds here. He's got back-to-back wins by submission. Kyler Phillips is coming off of 2 losses in his own right. Now, I think he's a decent-sized bantamweight, so I don't expect Jourdain to have a massive size advantage here, but this is definitely the better weight class for him. I think he has a chance to be a legitimate contender at this division. So for me, I'm going to go Charles Jourdain here by decision, plus 195. Kyler Phillips will probably win the first round, so if you want to take Jourdain live after round 1, I think that's a fine bet as well. You might even get this price after round 1. As Kyler Phillips usually starts pretty hot and then fades into the third round, which we've seen many times. So we move on to the main event. Gilbert Burns, 39 years old, against Mike Malott. Canadian's own Mike Malott, right? The future Mr. Canada, maybe. A little dubious of that, but look, Gilbert Burns, 22-9. He's lost 4 in a row, probably going on 5 in a row here. Love Gilbert Burns as a person, love him as a fighter. He was really fun in that Khamzat Chimaev fight, really fun in that Kamaru Usman title shot as well. But Malott's the guy here. This is a showcase spot for him in Canada. I think Malott wins this fight. And I'm going to have the fight to start round 2. I'll give Burns a little bit of credit and think that he survives the first round. Really gets the money line price down from minus 330 to minus 105. Still get all the win conditions as long as, obviously, Burns would have to survive that first round. I'm going to take Malott here. Those are your 3 bets in 3 minutes. Nothing too crazy in terms of the long shots, so hopefully we could sweep it and get back onto the winning path. Thank you for tuning in.
Alrighty, thank you very much for that. Let us know in the comments what you think about all the fights this weekend and our thoughts as well. Also going on this, actually, by the time you watch this, it might be over. PFL Belfast, Derek Kelly versus J.J. Wilson. Hughes was supposed to be in this fight, but he did have to pull out due to injury. Like I said before, this fight might already be done. It's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern early fights, and then the main card starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're filming this on Thursday, and it might go up afterwards. So, Scott, let's just go ahead and get the event rating for this card that may likely be done by the time this is airing.
Yeah, I think it'll almost definitely be over. So just to tell you what you either watched or caught up on, this event rating is a 1. It's slightly lower, very so slightly lower than the one that was last week from PFL in Chicago. But that one was very top heavy. At least had some pretty talent. There was disparities in the matchmaking for that one. But look, this whole card was essentially assembled to showcase Paul Hughes in front of his hometown crowd. And the knee injury, unfortunately, robbed us of that. Injuries are injuries. I'm sure it really gutted him not to be able to fight in Belfast, but that's just the way it was. But when you lose him, man, we just don't have a whole lot. This is very much a regional MMA card for Irish and some British fighters, and this is much lower than the Canadian regional card, because we're talking about they're doing fighters on this card that are as low as like 1-0 versus 1-0. They're not even ranked yet, so that drags the rating of this card down harshly. There is one, I guess you'll call it a notable-ish fight at 205 pounds. Douglas Yakshimuradov is borderline top 15 in especially a fight matrix. I don't know where I would put him, but against Tyson Pedro, UFC veteran who's now with PFL, it's decent for them in terms of like impact, I guess. There's also future potential impact from guys like Derek Kelly, who's fighting JJ Wilson in that main event, right? And if you're an Irish MMA fan, I don't think you care about this type of stuff. You're probably going to be hype. I know how the Irish fans can be. I know the British fans can be. They love their guys. They get very much behind them. So it doesn't matter in that sense. But also this fight card basically just doesn't matter if you're a fight fan. You can check it out and probably have a good time, but that's really all.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, let's go ahead and I feel like we've been through all the big stuff, tentpole, well, not tentpoles, the big events this weekend. Scott, what else do we have going on in the land of MMA for quick hits?
Guys, we've actually got some pretty big news in the recent days, right? Going all the way back even to UFC 327 the other day. We already alluded to the fact that we've got Josh Hockett, who was just booked impromptu on fight night against Derek Lewis for the White House card on June 14. And a numbered event actually has been announced in the coming day or in the recent days as well. UFC 330. We have a date for it. We have a location. It is August 15 in Philadelphia, not too far from our neck of the woods. In fact, I was just there over the weekend myself. I was watching the fights on a battleship in Camden, just outside of Philadelphia. But this is the first time back in Philly for the UFC since 2019. We don't know any fights. There's none announced. You'd assume there's going to be a championship fight or two on there. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Also announced that night, Gable Steveson. He is now in the UFC. He's going to make his debut at UFC 329, July 11th. The opponent has yet to be revealed. Maybe there is none yet. I don't know. But he is in place. So yeah, that's that. We finally have the arrival. I think everybody's been waiting for this for quite a long time for Gable Steveson to get here, and now he is, right? There has been a settlement reached, kind of switching gears here. A settlement has been reached between Conor McGregor and former friend Artem Lobov, who I guess there was a lawsuit over profits from Proper Number 12 whiskey that, of course, Conor McGregor is known for. No terms were disclosed. No dollies were thrown at buses, so that's always good as well. We've got another unfortunate announcement here, though. This is Lorenz Larkin. He has withdrawn from his planned fight against former Bellator welterweight champion Jason Jackson. That was going to take place on the Rousey Carano undercard on May 16th. That is not going to include the Lorenz Larkin, unfortunately. And lastly, and this is unfortunate news to hear, you never like to hear this, former UFC and Pride veteran Mark Hunt was arrested this week on domestic violence charge in Australia, according to online court records. And that is our quick hits for the week.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Scott. And guys, let's talk about our homework in the final round. Jorge Masvidal versus Toby Imada. This one was at Bellator 5 back in 2009. And Scott, I believe you prefaced this by saying, like, be patient. And I think it paid off because in the third round, I believe it was, Jorge Masvidal is, it seems like things are going pretty well for him until Toby Imada gets essentially lifted, or I don't even know how you describe how this reverse triangle happens, but he's on top of him and then Jorge tries to stand up. He's got that reverse triangle locked in and you're kind of like tilting your head being like, is he doing what I think he's thinking of doing right now? And then boom, Jorge goes limp. Eric, what did you
drops
think
to the floor unconscious.
Eric, what did you think about that one?
You know, in terms of grappling, like I was like Masvidal should know like how to like kind of maneuver his way out of this, and he like kind of
this was a young Masvidal. Be nice.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was kind of like I was like, man, like Masvidal by the end was like way better at grappling than what I thought I saw here. You know, for me, I mean, I was surprised that he actually got submitted. Honestly, this was not the direction I thought we were going. Like, it was obviously an early Bellator card, but I thought it was going to be like. I'd never seen this fight. I didn't even really know who Toby Imada was, to be honest. And when I jumped in,
he's
here,
really only
like,
known for this.
Okay, all right, fair. Because I was gonna say, I was like, Masvidal is gonna come in here and give this guy the 3-piece in the soda, and he's gonna jump onto the scene. Not the case. I was really expecting him to be able to, like, he should be able to get out of this, right? And then he's gonna come away with the victory. Like, at what point do we see Masvidal win? And then it just never happened.
Yeah,
I love that I was able to get you guys like to not know what was going to happen. I very purposefully
Yeah.
did that. I didn't want to pick just the highlight because this was the submission of the year. This is definitely one of the greatest submissions I think in MMA history. It gets lost in the shuffle, not just because it was on Bellator, but because it was a very long time ago and we have short memories. But yeah, I mean, you just don't see submissions like this in MMA anymore. Everyone's a little too savvy, and honestly, a lot of them are just not well rounded enough to be able to pull those off, save for the very much specialists.
Scott is I know you are a sucker for rare submissions. Like that is one of the things
I am.
that you take great pride in having a library of in your mind, I feel like. And that was definitely cool. And also a standing reverse triangle. It's not just like it was on the ground, which is what you typically see on your local jiu-jitsu mat. This is a guy standing up on the feet, and he was like, nope, I'm locking this in. Boom. Worked out pretty well for him. But yeah, guys, let us know in the comments what you thought about that one. Speaking of homework, Scott, what's our next assignment?
We're going to give you guys, we've been going on YouTube a lot lately, so I'm going to give you one that you probably have very easy ways to find. Even it could be on YouTube, but it's probably easier to find, and also Fight Pass and pretty much anywhere. Paramount Plus, I'm sure you'll watch this. Cub Swanson against Doo Ho Choi from almost 10 years ago. I'm going to give Cub Swanson an extra little send-off after winning his final fight on Saturday against Nate Landwehr, heading off into the sunset with a victory. Here is another fight. Basically, this is his greatest fight. It's in the UFC Hall of Fame's Fight Wing. I think Eric has almost definitely seen it. I would say I don't know that Jake has seen it. I hope you haven't. I hope this is new for you. And if it isn't, I don't care because it's so much fun. Well, it's so much fun. You're going to have a really great time. One last element that I picked it for. It's one of the greatest fights to ever take place in Canada. More synergy.
Wow, Scott, I feel like it's either you're having really good luck
You're
or
just killing it today.
Yeah, you're just absolutely killing it.
A banner day for Mr. Fontana. I watched this fight at a Buffalo
Every
Wild
day
Wings.
is a banner day for Scott Fontana.
I watched this fight at a Buffalo Wild Wings live in 2016.
That's always a good time.
I watched it at a Tilted Kilt.
Hey, okay, that's an interesting place.
Well,
that's where we watched the free fights at that point.
Dude,
that was it.
That's what happens, man. It was slim pickings
you
trying
go
to
wherever
find
you
a
don't
UFC
pay.
bar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Scott, take us home for our rounding out of history in MMA with what happened this week in MMA.
I will give you this week in MMA, April 16, both in 1982 and 1985. Gina Carano and Nate Diaz, respectively, were born. We had the birthday send-off or the birthday celebration or song or whatever they did at the presser in New York last night, which, I mean, we're on Thursday here at this point, so that was Wednesday. You already knew they were birthday twins. Happy birthday to them.
Funnily enough, my dad actually shares a birthday with both of them. I learned that yesterday. I called my dad afterwards. I was like, did you know that
you learned your father's birthday yesterday? That is very weird.
I know, right? No, I was like, Dad, did you know that you share a birthday with Nate Diaz and Gina Carano? He was like, that's actually kind of cool. I was like, all right. Happy birthday, Dad.
There you go.
But Scott, for those who are looking to get one more fight in this weekend, what can they look out for?
Well, you wouldn't get a PFL that already passed, right? And that's technically not even the weekend's Thursday. Yeah. I'm going to give you, I think this is a really good one, actually. KSW 117. That is Saturday. You can catch it at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's a pay-per-view on kswmma.com. There are two title fights that I think both are highly watchable and very intriguing. Middleweight champion Pavel Pavlak is going to be going against Mamed Khalidov, somebody who I have really enjoyed watching over the last 17, 18 years. He is an action fighter. He's been in some really fantastic fights over the years. These guys are both, it's number 55 and number 30 respectively. Well, inactive out of the rankings, but he was 30 last time. Khalidov, he last fought in 2024. I'm curious to see how this goes. And then also, heavyweight champion Phil DeFries is number 16 at Fight Matrix. He has won, I believe he's going for his 17th victory in a row, which is kind of absurd in heavyweight MMA, even if it's not always against like the elites. This is his highest ranked opponent in, I want to say, 5 years against Marcin Wojcik. He's number 28 at Fight Matrix too. So I'm curious to see if he can kind of keep this going. And, I know Jake, he was on your radar as one of your top 10 heavyweights. I think you moved him down a little bit, but he's certainly hovering around there. And the UFC had a chance at him. He moved on. He found success somewhere else. I don't think he's going to leave KSW. I think this is where he fights and then he retires.
Yeah, he was in, I believe, my 10th slot for our first MMA rankings back in February, I was like, you know what, this guy's got, what is it? It was 16 in a row, or he's going for a 17th on this one, correct?
He's going for 17
Yeah.
now. It is 16
I was like, you know what, this guy's got 17 in a row, or 16 in a row. We're almost done, I promise. And I was like, heavyweight's kind of a barren landscape. He's in my number 10 slot. I'll throw him in there. So, I mean, if he can do 17, that's absolutely nuts. So we'll see what happens there. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Scott, Erich, always fun to talk with you guys about what's going on. You back home, enjoy the fights this weekend. Let us know all your thoughts in the comments below, and we will see you next week.